$64.84. And we're asking for your ratification of 3 payroll for paydays of December 6th, December 22nd, I believe. I've got that wrong. 20th, I beg your pardon, and also January 3rd, and the amounts that are shown there. Mr. President, that is the agenda for the council's consideration. Are there any questions?
Not from the president. Any questions from the members? All right.
It would be in order, Mr. President, then, for you to call the plenary business meeting to order and recognize Mr. Harris to lead us in the opening session.
Sure. The plenary business meeting to order.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Almighty God, our Heavenly Father, would you bless us with the gift of life in this community? Send your blessings to the town of Highland that we may continue to work and live together in peace and harmony as we strive to care and support each other. Send your strength to all department heads and commissions and those who are employed by the town, that they might find enjoyment in their service and satisfaction in their labor. Bless this meeting this evening, and grant that all we do and say may uphold the honor of your purpose in the creation of government and be intended for the improvement of our life together. This we ask in your name, amen.
Amen.
President, thank you. Councilor Zeman.
Here.
Councilor Herrick.
Here.
Councilor Shockey.
Here.
Councilor Black.
Here.
Councilor Sheehan.
Here.
All present and a quorum is established. Mr. President, next business in order is consideration of minutes of the previous session. We have before you the minutes enrolled for the regular meeting of 13 January 2020.
With regard to the minutes, do I have a motion with regard to this?
Mr. President, I make a motion to adopt the minutes from our last meeting.
Motion by Mr. Black.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Sheehan. Do we have any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, we get a vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilor Zeman.
Yes.
Councilor Herrick.
Yes.
Councilor Black.
Yes.
Councilor Sheehan.
Yes.
Councilor Shockey.
Yes.
5-0, it passed. Mr. President, the next business in order is special orders. The first to consider under special orders is consideration of proposed additional appropriations. Pursuant to the authority of the council, you authorize the legal advertisement for proposed additional appropriations for the following funds and the following amounts. The unsafe building fund in the amount of $142,400. That looked like 4,000 is 400. The general improvement fund in the amount of $8,000. The hazardous materials response fund in the amount of $13,073. And finally, the municipal cumulative street fund in the amount of $40,000. Mr. President, it would be in order at this time to consult with the town attorney to determine his opinion regarding the sufficiency of the proof of publication. Should you find it to be sufficient, it would be in order for you to call a public hearing on this proposed additional appropriation in order.
I reviewed the proof of publication from the publisher, and the publisher swears that the publication was made on January 16th, which is more than 10 days prior to today's hearing date. Notice is appropriate.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. I will now open the public hearing with regard to this special order of consideration of proposed additional appropriations as stated by Mr. Griffin. Anyone that would like to speak with regard to this consideration of proposed additional appropriations? Mr. Conrad, I see you.
Mr. Conrad, you were so good.
I promised them that I'd be polite, so I'm gonna be polite. Thank you, and congratulations on your very first hearing.
Thank you.
All right, so the $142,000 for unsafe building funds is just moving $142,400 into the department in case we have a building that we need to demolish. Is that correct?
With your leave, Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Conrad. Actually, this is said all the time. Please forbear me that I'm correcting the verb you used. That cash is actually on deposit to the credit of that fund. You know, we have 68 different funds, and that's one of them. That has been accumulated over the course of time from fines and or fees that have been imposed by the building department. In order to be able to spend that for future enforcement, the council, if it grants it by passing the enactment tonight, gives him permission to spend it. So not moving anything. That cash would remain there if they decide not to give him permission to spend it, but he couldn't spend it on it.
But basically, gist of it is the $400 is to be able to demolish buildings if it's so needed. All right.
Pursue enforcement of that law.
Now, we also are allocating up to $40,000 in sidewalk replacement.
Mr. President, with your leave?
Yes.
Mr. Conrad, that is my understanding. That request came from the Public Works Director. And although there's not that amount of funds in there, he's a very good public official and a very good department head. And he has that to give him the leeway for the projects that he may run through there that are mostly funded, as you know, by half and half expenditures. Half paid by the town, half paid by the people who are asking for the improvement to their sidewalk.
Okay, so if I had a bad sidewalk in front of my house, I would pick up half of the cost, so the town would pick up the other half. That's basically just
That's a broad description. The half that we do is to actually take out the concrete, break it up and remove it. And then you pay the cost of the actual hole, yes.
Okay, there's sidewalks missing along Liable Road, north of Highway Avenue. Are they entitled to use any of this funds for installation of sidewalks if they wanted to? Or do they have to have a repair of a sidewalk? Or how do those poor people get into the sidewalk program?
Mr. President, you may want to go to the Public Works Director.
That is an interesting question. I'm intrigued. Mr. Bach, do you know? the
Yeah.
answer?
There's no cash balance in the sidewalk, in, that fund that we just talked about, in the Municipal Kingdom Street Fund. That is a fund in which, if someone who didn't have sidewalk along, that abutted their property, it's the town's policy and ordinance that the homeowner is responsible for the installation and maintenance of the public sidewalk that abuts their home. So if someone who didn't have sidewalk wished to have sidewalk installed, they could, what we would do to have that work done for them, they would have to contribute into that fund the amount to cover the cost for the sidewalk. We would go ahead and use our contractor the town has selected through a competitive bidding process, have a sidewalk installed, and then would pay out of those funds. Otherwise, they could just simply get a permit from the building department and have the sidewalk installed themselves by a licensed contractor in town. So that doesn't happen very frequently, that people would do that, order us to do the work, give us the funds to do that, and have it contracted out by somebody else. Does that make sense to you? This is typically used for the sidewalk improvement fund, where there's a section of sidewalk that's in bad condition, either they voluntarily or by request of the town, asked to have the sidewalk repaired, and we would, most of the time it's a voluntary thing. People call us up and say, we want our sidewalk repaired. They would pay those funds to the town, we would have the work done and pay for that from that particular department. So we need the appropriation to pay that to the contractor, to pay for the work done to the contractor.
Mr. Bach, if we go on with Mr. Conrad's question, do we ever put teeth in our ordinance as saying that if, like 3/4 of the sidewalks are in a particular area, that we could require them to put in?
There's nothing in the ordinance right now that compels the town to demand some, proper install sidewalk. There's some language in there, but it's not very,
I thought it was a routine.
yeah, that's not.
Mr. Bach, actually, I have a question. Is there someone that grades the conditions of the sidewalks in town?
We've had inspections done before, and I mean, we could be here all night talking about the sidewalk replacement program, because it is a point of attention. We realize there's a lot of sidewalk that is in bad condition. We've relied basically for people to voluntarily have that done, but there's really nothing, there is a process we can go through to compel them to do that, but the council has not put those practices in place. We can talk about that at some time in the near future, but detail about that.
We have to check a person going around and walking on the
Yes,
sidewalk.
yes, we have done that before.
Is there an ordinance that says that the homeowner is responsible for the sidewalk?
Yes.
There is an ordinance for it.
If I could, maybe we could look into the future of maybe throwing in some money for people who want a sidewalk, who don't have sidewalks now. Like I said, along Liable, north of Highway, there's other areas that don't have sidewalks. And I think it could start becoming a safety hazard now, when we have children walking in the streets. So, just something you guys can consider.
Well, your point, you can also apply for looking at a grant from the county, John,
In the past, where we've had situations, we've had some community development block grant fund. There's been periods in the past where we've designated some funds to the county for people of low to moderate income that could apply for those. That's not the program that we selected in 19. We've got a project in Wicker Park Manor on Robertson Place that was approved last year. But in the past, we have done that, but there aren't funds available, town funds for that. I'm not sure if the county will do that without being a part of the town's program. Okay.
That's all I have, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public with regard to this matter, the proposed additional appropriations? Anyone? All right, seeing none, I will, is there any discussion from the members of the board? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Hare.
I'd like to approve, make motion to approve on consideration of first reading Appropriation Act number 2020-01.
All right, motion by Counselor Hare. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Zeman. Any discussion on the matter? Seeing none? Would
Thank
like
you,
a roll
Mr.
call.
President. Just reminding everyone that for this vote, it requires a unanimous vote in favor of this. Counselor Zeman,
Yes.
Counselor Herrick,
Yes.
Counselor Black,
Yes.
Counselor Sheeman.
Yes.
Counselor Shockey.
Yes.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move for adoption of an act, Appropriation Act number 2020-01.
We get motion by Counselor Herrick. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Black. Any discussion on the matter? Seeing none? would I-
Just to remind the members who are new, when you consider an ordinance on the same evening of its introduction, and you do that by unanimous consent, 4 of the 5 of you need to vote in favor of it for it to be adopted. Ordinarily, just 3 of the 5 of you would be necessary. Counselor Zeman.
Yes.
Counselor Herrick.
Yes.
Counselor Black.
Yes.
Counselor Sheeman.
Yes.
Counselor Shockey.
Yes.
5-0, the ordinance passes on the same night of introduction. I thank the council. Mr. President, with your leave, the next business before you is consideration of proposed additional appropriations for the controlled funds before you. This fund includes a redevelopment capital fund in the amount of $1,898,933 and the 3 departments of the Corporation General Fund. First, the Police Department and the Corporation General Fund in the amount of $119,000. The Fire Department of the Corporation General Fund in the amount of $101,123. And in the Works Board Department of the Corporation General Fund in the amount of $40,000 for a total additional appropriation of all departments in the general fund of $260,123. Mr. President, members of the council, in the case of the redevelopment capital fund, this is unappropriated, unobligated cash on deposit to the credit of that fund that does require an appropriation. The appropriation that you're considering this evening is based on a budget that has been the budget for that fund for the last 3 years, only adjusted to take into account money that's been spent previously. As I shared with the council in your predicate meeting, $277,000 of that cash balance was expended in 2019 for projects that were authorized by the council, and minus that, this is what's left. We also take into account that already about $97,000 have been obligated from contracts and or expenses that were committed to in 2019 that haven't yet been dispersed. So that cash has to be held in encumbrance to account for this. So this additional would be for the balance of that. In the case of the Corporation General Fund, the town council, the 27th town council, 28th town council took steps to try to bring the town council, this budget, the 2020 budget in balance by, with the consent of the departments that were affected, reducing appropriations at the time of adoption by $260,123. The understanding at that time was that we would restore those appropriations in a new year when we could, to fund that from a surplus transfer from the Waterworks surplus cash reserve fund that will have that money in its entirety, which is completely lawful, but required us to have to do it in the context of an additional because of the way that law reads. So this will be funded by that revenue source. As I have shared with the council, our rates and charges for both the sanitary district and the water district have in them returns on investment components that do support operations of the town government generally and the general fund specifically. It would be in order again, Mr. President, to consult with the town attorney with regard to the sufficiency of the proof of publication. Should he find them to be in order, it would be in order then for you to call the hearing to order.
Very good. Mr. Reed, are the proofs of publication in accordance with law?
Yes, they are. Again, the proof of publication sworn to by the publisher was in the newspaper as the, under legal notices section on January 16th, which is in excess of 10 days prior to this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. With that, I will open the public hearing for the consideration of proposed additional appropriations as just set forth by Mr. Griffin. Mr. Conrad?
Mr. Shockey, thank you very much. This is for the total funds of $1,898,933 into the redevelopment fund. Is that correct? Is that what the hearing's for?
It's an appropriation.
Right, I get it. All right, so, here it looks like we're gonna do, some land purchases possibly in the amount of $1,461,309, along with the associated legal fees for legal services for land acquisition of $32,500, and we're gonna appraise some properties for another $47,200. Okay, that comes to $1,541,009 about. Do we have a list of any properties that we're buying?
Kathy, at this time, I don't believe there are any.
There is an acquisition list in place. None of those have been discussed with the new commission.
But there are no
However, there is an
specific-
acquisition list in place.
Right, there are no specific properties in.
So this is just
Not
authorizing the
conversation,
redevelopment to buy some properties if they come available to you and.
If a
you find
plan
it.
is developed for them.
Okay, and this is part of the, last year, I believe, it was about a $1.7 million bond, leftover proceeds from the sale of a bond to help demolish the Highlands apartments. Is that the same dead cat we're dragging around some more?
Not sure it's a dead cat.
I'm not sure that analogy applies. It seems lively to me.
So then also part of this, $1.9 million about is about $76,000 for Wayfair signage. Last year, I believe, we appropriated about $1 million in some grants that Highland paid 20% of, which came for some reason to $304,519, which really isn't quite 20%. But in my memory serves me correct, there was about 8 communities involved in this, and about 26. And, excuse me,
You're talking about the
first,
park project, that
Yeah.
NERC as lead agency on them, we became the fiscal agent.
right,
for
we're
it,
the
park department has-
sponsoring party of it.
Right, and that was to do signage just for the bike trails.
Right, and that's what this is for?
No, this is
This is
different.
additional.
This
Okay,
is for a
because last-
different purpose.
Well, last year, we spent about $39,066 a mile for signs. So here we need another 76,000 for more signs.
I don't see signs
Last
on
year, we
this
spent
wall.
about $1 million in signs with 6 or 8 communities to cover 26 miles worth of signs on the bike path. This is a different wayfinding sign
Yes.
that we couldn't somehow find our way in the original 39,000 a mile. So this is nearly, well, it's $76,000
Mr.
for
President,
signs.
ordinarily, I would defer to the redevelopment director, but this preceded her appointment. That had been part of the redevelopment plan for the downtown for a good long while. It's just finding the time. There've been a number of things that took the attention of the department for a variety of reasons. But what was envisioned in that plan, and still yet to be executed, and it could be abandoned, is the possibility of having signs like you see in Portage or in Griffith, where the signage is big enough that it gives you easy access to things they think that would be of interest. So to find the downtown of Griffith, there's a large sign off of Ridge Road that describes that location. I just know where the popcorn place is, that's important to me. They would do it for the community center in Highland. They might do it for the Highway of Flags, depending where it's at. It's a common tool. Urban planners encourage people to do it. Development professionals like them. Portage's is actually very good. They're very visible, and they do highlight ways to get easily to places that people they think would be wanting to go. Part of the discussion that never took place was what would be the attractions beside the Lincoln Center and the Highway of Flags be. Maybe Wicker Park. And so then that didn't get mature enough as a policy consideration. And then given the size of the staff, a number of other things got more important for them by the policy leadership. So that's been carried because it's been part of the plan. Whether it'll get executed is an open question. And I only offered to answer that, Mr. President, because I knew that the redevelopment director was a little disadvantaged because that was an older plan that preceded her by several years.
Well, $76,000 worth of signs, should be pretty nice. Then we have an expense of $2,124 for the community garden center services. Last year, we had a grant, I think, of $5,000 from somebody that wasn't tax dollars, and we had $5,000 worth of contributions, which came to about $10,000 to grow some tomatoes next to the fire station. So now we have $2,124 additional expenses to grow some more vegetables in the community garden, or is this a different project?
No, it's the same project, it's not additional, it's what was left over from the donations and fundraising that the community, Highland Main Street did for that community garden. But in this case, it needed to be reappropriated, and be an additional appropriation to actually spend those donations and the monies raised.
So once again, this is just appropriating the money in case you come up with $2,100.
No,
Well, they
that was
have- no,
left
they have
over
a
from last
plan.
year.
Well, I understand, but you have to
No, they
appropriate
have
it
a
in order to
plan.
spend it.
That's correct.
So,
Yeah.
right, so we can look forward to a maximum of $2,000 for the vegetables in the community garden. Can anybody tell us what happened to the vegetables last year in the community garden?
There's a couple of families, we went through the town of Highland, or the school town of Highland, and we asked if they would figure out in their own method, families in Highland that could use the vegetables. I've been talking for this coming up year, because unfortunately last year we didn't have enough people to give vegetables to, surprisingly. We actually had 2 families say we've had enough. So I am working with the Methodist Church in Hammond, a couple of food banks in Gary, where food deserts are. I mean, absolutely, if there's more people in Highland that
Well, we're
want.
appropriating then money in Highland to grow vegetables to give to other communities, is that? what we're going with this?
To give to people who are
Right.
need it, Highland first, obviously. We also want to do a program with the schools and expand the garden a little bit.
My answer is he's gonna give it to the Methodist Church.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. So essentially, these are appropriations, just to put a little bow on everything. These are appropriations. Doesn't mean that the money is spent or is going to be spent, but in order to spend it, we have to authorize the appropriation. And so that is what we are doing for this particular purpose. But thank you for enlightening me on the $76,000 worth of signage, Mr. Condrat. I had glossed over that. Any other comments from the public with regard to this particular enactment? Mr. Goldberg, good evening, sir.
Just a technical question. The $1,898,933 is appropriated. How long does it sit in the appropriated status? Is that a forever thing? Does it last for 1 year and then it concludes and has to be renewed next year? What's the technicalities?
It's my understanding that it's for the year.
It's 1 year, and then what happens at the end of the year?
Then we have to
It expires.
Yes.
You have to do the reappropriation again?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Goldberg. Anyone else? Seeing none, I will now close the public hearing. I would ask for any motion with regard to this particular document.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. I don't want
Yes.
to gloss over comments made by Mr. Griffin. The fact that several of them, the police department, fire department, and the works board, we use that money to balance the budget. We said we're gonna put it back in. So don't forget the last part of that is something we are recommitted to department heads that we're gonna do. Get it back, the money back in their account.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Hare. Any other discussion on this matter? Seeing none, I would call for any type of motion with regard to this additional appropriation.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Zoom.
to make a motion to consider on first reading, appropriation enactment number 2020-02.
All right, motion by Counselor Zeman. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Black. Do we have any discussion on this matter? Seeing none, I would ask for a vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Counselor Zeman?
Yes.
Counselor Herrick?
Yes.
Counselor Black?
Yes.
Counselor Sheeman?
Yes.
Counselor Shockey?
Yes.
Roll call's 5-0. It passes.
Okay, Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Zeman.
motion to adopt, enactment number 2020-02.
We have a motion by Counselor Zeman. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Counselor Sheeman. Any discussion on the matter? Seeing none, I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Counselor Zeman?
Yes.
Counselor Herrick?
Yes.
Counselor Black?
Yes.
Counselor Sheeman?
Yes.
Counselor Shockey?
Yes.
5-0, it passes. Mr. President, that ends the special orders for the council. The next business in order are appointments. Mr. President, if there is readiness, the first matter for consideration or announcement in your case, because these are municipal executive appointments, would be the unexpired term that you, for the position you occupied on the Highland Municipal Plan Commission. And that actually will run until the first Monday in January 2022, which represents the unexpired term remaining on the term that, in the post that you vacated.
All right, with that, as the municipal executive, it is my pleasure to appoint Jim Kissy as my successor on the Plan Commission. So thank you, Mr. Kissy. We will look forward to you as taking over my my shoes. In
I was gonna say, you got some really big shoes to fill.
Yeah, clown shoes, right?
What's next again?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Kissy. Okay, and then I guess the next one would be.
The Advisory Board of Zoning Appeals, if you feel ready to make that, this would be
No.
the unexpired term for Mr. Lee.
So at this point, I'm going to defer this one, only because it's only been recently vacated and, we're still looking for a qualified candidate, so if anyone in the public would like to apply, we have one other applicant, but certainly we would consider others. All right.
The next two are executive, and they're there as reminders, Mr. President, as I shared with you. We're waiting for the nomination papers to come from the county. On the Economic Development Commission, that particular post requires a nomination by the county fiscal body. And the Redevelopment Commission, that term is a 2-year term, it doesn't expire until June 30th. And again, you had indicated you wanted to get some feedback from the school town with regard to informing your appointment for that non-voting position on the Redevelopment Commission.
Correct.
The only other matter then that would be an executive appointment remaining on your agenda, Mr. President, would be the unexpired term for a multi-year position, one of 3 that the town council president has on the Community Events Commission. This is the one that was vacated owing to the death of the late Elmo Parlor. And this particular term would expire the 1st of January 2021, so it really has only a year remaining or less. And it would be renewable for 4 years. If you have felt readiness for that, that would be great, but if not, that's okay too.
Out of curiosity,
No.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, these
Those are one-year
additional
appointments.
appointments, these
Those are
one-year
1
appointments,
years, yeah.
are there enough slots in the 1-year appointments for applicants? Because my
We
thought is,
You have 9
We have 9, which is
annuals,
what you have there.
and 9 is the amount
Right.
that
okay.
the ordinance authorizes.
All right, so I will defer my president, my executive appointment, until such time that, we can find someone that would be, interested in taking the 4-year vacancy. But I think the group is going to be ready to make the single-year appointments.
Sounds good. Having heard that, then, I will skip over then under the Community Events Commission. The legislative body as a whole, the full town council does have also a multi-year position that would expire January 2022. We're waiting to decide on this other appointment, so skip that information about an additional resignation, because that's not clear yet. So you do have 9 positions that are subject to renewal or new appointments for the annual 1-year legislative appointments, Mr. President.
Okay, with that, I would entertain a motion for appointment of single-year term appointments to the Community Events Commission.
Mr. President, I'd like to nominate Chris Cronus.
Why don't we just do the whole
Wanna do the
list
list?
and then do them as a one time? Don't
Right.
read every one of them,
You
just
just
read
move
all
to
the names
appoint.
up and then we'll
Move to appoint them.
move a point.
So you will move to appoint Chris Cornish and,
Deanna Cornus, Jacqueline Herrera, Michael Cardone, Michael Bilski, Elizabeth Elko, Christina Gonzalez, John Salziter, and Jason Thorpe.
okay, we have a motion by Counselor Black. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Counselor Sheeman. Is there any discussion on this matter? Seeing none, I would entertain a vote on this matter.
Thank you, Mr. President. Counselor Zeman?
Yes.
Counselor Herrick?
Yes.
Counselor Black?
Yes.
Counselor Sheeman?
Yes.
Counselor Shockey?
Yes.
5-0, the motion passes. The persons named are appointed. Continuing on, Mr. President, the next business in order for the council's consideration then is under unfinished business and general orders. The first matter or item of business for the council's consideration is proposed ordinance number 1712. This is an ordinance that would amend the compensation and benefits ordinance and this personnel program in municipality. This specifically deals with changes that would be made to the current section 125 or cafeteria plan of the town, specifically dealing with the suggestion from your study session that would, if adopted, eliminate the component by creating it as a limited cafeteria fund. It would eliminate the flexible spending fund for medical issues, but it would continue to provide a dependent care reimbursement account. In all other ways, it would allow for conversions of premiums that are paid for group health insurance to be subject to pre-tax treatment if adopted. Again, Mr. President, members of council, it is my request. I would like the town attorney to have more time to review it. I would also like more time for the town employees who would be affected by this to have this be sort of their notification as we discussed. It might be in order then to simply have a counselor, if there's willingness to do so, to introduce the ordinance.
I would entertain such introduction of this ordinance, if so chosen by a counselor.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce proposed ordinance number 1712.
Right, that's
Introduced by Counselor Black.
I thank the council. Mr. President, continuing with your lead.
Yes.
The next business in order is resolution number 2020-03. This is a resolution of the fiscal body of the town of Highland that will fix the amounts charged to the several departments by fund for this year's services provided by the Information Communications and Technology Fund. Mr. President, members of the council, this is a fund that supports the information technology function of our town. It pays for a renewal of copiers. It pays for our most, if not all, of our broad, what we call commons IT. If it's a very specialized IT, that may be left in a department. It also does all of our communications, so our wide area network maintenance and the like. This year, the amount that has been calculated based by the percentages that are in your packet is $211,766. This was approved by the council for the 2020 budget and is in force. And it would be allocated in the following amounts if adopted: $52,941.50 to the general fund and its departments, $42,353.20 to Parks and Recreation through its fund, redevelopment department through its fund of $10,588.30, and water operations and sewer operations each contributing also 25% or $52,941.50, bringing us to the $211,766 needed. Section 3.45.110 of the Highland Municipal Code authorizes this fund and this form of finance. It would be in order then, if there's readiness, to take up resolution 2020-03.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce resolution number 2020-03.
We have a,
I'm capturing that as moving its.
yes, moving for approval. Okay, so that's a motion by Counselor Black. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Sheeman. Any discussion on the matter? Seeing none, I would ask for a vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Counselor Zeman?
Yes.
Counselor Herrick?
Yes.
Counselor Black?
Yes.
Counselor Sheeman?
Yes.
Counselor Shockey?
Yes.
Roll call is 5-0. It passes. Mr. President, members of the council, the next business in order is your consideration of number 3, which is resolution number 2020-04. This is a resolution that, if adopted, will allow the execution of an employment agreement between the town of Highland and with Peter Hodgnicki for the position of police chief. Mr. President, members of the council, this has been requested by the police chief. He wishes to be able to execute his retirement rights that would be available to him under Indiana law, and at the same time remain serving us as our police chief. The Town Board of Metropolitan Police Commissioners, which have the authority to appoint and hire employees, do not have contract authority. So they have recommended your favor on this particular regime or agreement, as they have also for the one next dealing with Assistant Chief Pat Vassar. But it does require council action, which has, for this department's sake, sole authority to contract.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Sheeman.
I move that we adopt the resolution 2020-04.
Motion by Counselor Sheeman. Do we have a second?
Second.
second by Counselor Black. Is there any discussion on the matter? I would just like to add that this is a substantial savings to the town. I appreciate the chief and the assistant chief and their willingness to go through this to cost savings of the town, and so I'm in favor of it. With that, any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, just as we said, that when we're talking with the chief and the assistant chief during the budget hearing, this is substantial savings, as you alluded to, but also prevent us having to reduce programs like community policing, stuff like that. So it's a benefit, a win-win for everybody.
Yes, absolutely. And we recognize your sacrifice and your continued commitment with the town, both of you. Thank you, gentlemen. Any other discussion? All right. That being said, I call for a roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Counselor Zeman?
Yes.
Counselor Herrick?
Yes.
Counselor Black?
Yes.
Counselor Sheeman?
Yes.
Counselor Shockey?
Yes.
Vote is 5-0, it passes. The next business in order is resolution number 2020-05. This is the same resolution, except it applies to Assistant Chief Pat Vassar. I should say in both cases, this would be for a term of 3 years. And it's not presented to you for your consideration for all the reasons I gave before. I will add one thing. The chief suggested these savings in part for all the things that Counselor Herrick said, but it shows you now what we're trying to do to grapple with the property tax cap impact on the property tax supported operating budgets.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
I move that we adopt resolution 2020-05.
We have a motion by Counselor Zeman, or Counselor Sheeman. Do we have a second?
Second?
Second by Counselor Black. That's the first time that's happened, and I'm sure it'll happen again.
We could start wearing name tags.
Yeah, exactly. Is there any discussion on this issue? Seeing none, I will just reiterate the same reasoning I've set forth before. Seeing none, I'd ask for a roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Counselor Zeman?
Yes.
Counselor Herrick?
Yes.
Counselor Black?
Yes.
Counselor Sheeman?
Yes.
Counselor Shockey?
Yes.
Roll call is 5-0, it passes. Mr. President, members of the council, the next business in order is consideration of Works Board Order number 2020-05. This is an order that will approve an agreement between CBL Consulting, our current consultant for IT, personified by Ed Dabrowski, and the town of Highland to perform informational technological services for the municipality. He is offering to do this for his 3rd year in a row at the rates that he charged in 2019 as well as 2018. There have been some additional clarifications of services, which is in the engagement component, which is an A-launch to your Works Board order.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Sheeman.
I move that we adopt the order for Works Board number 2020-05.
Motion by Counselor Sheeman. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Zeman, as if that wasn't going to be confusing.
There we
Thank
go.
you. Any discussion on the matter?
I'd just like to thank Mr. Dabrowski for providing the services at the same rate he has in the past.
Absolutely. Thank you. Any other discussion? I would actually like to thank Mr. Dabrowski for setting up this streaming that the people at home are seeing us right now on, and he's not even charging the town additional money to do so as part of the services. So thank you for that, and I'm sure people at home are appreciative as well. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I would ask for a roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Counselor Zeman?
Yes.
Counselor Herrick?
No.
Counselor Herrick votes no. Counselor Black?
Yes.
Counselor Sheeman?
Yes.
Counselor Shockey?
Yes.
Roll calls 4 affirmatives, 1 negative. The motion passes. The agreement is agreed upon. The next business in order, Mr. President, members of the council, is consideration of request for payment of the 2019 Community Crossings Matching Grant Fund for street improvement projects that have been identified. This is largely a resurfacing initiative that is financed by our participation in this one-for-one matching grant from the state. There is a pay request that has been described to you and reviewed and recommended for your favor by Derek Snyder, who is the civil engineer who is reviewing and for quality assurance and compliance of this project. The amount would be on this pay number 5 to be payable to Walsh and Kelly, the amount of $10,221.20. I guess you could take these up separately, or you could do them together. What does the president want me to do with that?
Why don't we take them together?
All right, very well then. Inefficient administrative economy, I like that. The next request you have before you is of equal import. It's on the same project. This is pay request number 6. This one would allow the partial release of retainage that has been held aside during the course of this project in the amount of $57,456.33.
Do we have any motion with regard to this?
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Zeman.
I'd like to make a motion for payment for both A and B for these two pay requests.
All right, motion by Counselor Zeman. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Counselor Sheeman. Trying to confuse me again. Any discussion on this matter? Seeing none, I would ask for a roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Counselor Zeman.
Yes.
Counselor Herrick.
Yes.
Counselor Black.
Yes.
Counselor Sheeman.
Yes.
Counselor Shockey.
Yes.
Roll call is 5-0, the motion passes, the payments are authorized. Continuing, Mr. President, members of the council, the next business in order is a temporary appointment. As explained to the council in our informal review of the agenda, the town attorney has made a request noting that he has an unexpected schedule conflict that will make it impossible for him to represent us in his ordinary role as both town attorney and solicitor, that is the prosecutor of our code. So he's asking for a temporary solicitor to be appointed one time for January 28th, 2020. And he's recommending Nicole Bennett of the firm of Westland and Bennett.
Do we have a motion with regard to that?
I motion to approve the appointment of Cole Bennett as our attorney for the, what meeting is it?
Yeah, for January 28th.
For
That means the
January
docket tomorrow.
28th, to be our representing attorney to the council.
Town solicitor.
Council.
Right, town
Very
solicitor.
good. We have a motion by Commissioner Sheeman. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by, let's go with Zeman again. Okay, any discussion with regard to this matter?
Zeman.
I'd just like to say that I hope this doesn't become a regular occurrence.
All right.
I understand, yeah, and it is something that was totally unexpected that came up, and Ms. Bennett, I know has long experience doing this. She does them for the town of Munster, the town of Lowell, and does them in this same courtroom, so she's familiar with the process, the procedure. We have about 25 hearings that were going to happen, other than a couple officers that were not able to show up due to scheduling conflicts. Those cases have been continued. Many of the others are deferral agreements that have now expired and just requires a review of the driving record. Most of those will be dismissed, and there will probably be about 3 to 4 live matters that will be heard. It won't be a large docket. So, but you're correct, I will not make that
Thank you, Mr. Reed.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr.
Didn't he
Herrick.
hire, when he was appointed, hire a firm? Is there other people in his firm? It was, whatever was it, Abrahamson or whoever, I mean, isn't it someone else in your firm can do that?
There, the other person that would handle these type of matters in state court would be my partner Scott Bells. He is taking his daughter on a university visit for her physician assistant degree that same day, which generally would never happen, but bad luck. Yes. But normally that would be the case if I couldn't do it.
Certainly I can vouch for Ms. Bennett's competence. She's pretty good at this, and I think in terms of efficiency, I would support this type of move for a one time. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I would ask for a roll call vote on the matter.
Thank you, Mr. President. Counselor Zeman.
Yes.
Counselor Herrick.
No.
Counselor Herrick votes no. Counselor Black.
Yes.
Counselor Sheeman.
Yes.
Counselor Shockey.
Yes.
4 affirmatives, 1 negative, the motion passes, the temporary appointment is authorized. The next matter in order, Mr. President, is to authorize the proper officer to publish legal notice of a public hearing. This would be for the amount of $7,560. This is to make a repair that isn't covered by any other, who's not covered by underinsurance or non-insured people who brought damage to one of our streetlights. This comes to you as a request from the Public Works Director. The amount he is seeking is $7,560. As I said, this would be an municipal cumulative capital development fund. We have unappropriated equity in there that would support the amount without unduly harming the existing budget to that fund. But we need your authorization to advertise legal notice. This would take place, if granted by you this evening, at your meeting of 24 February 2020.
Entertain a motion with regard to the authorization of proper publish of legal notice for a public hearing.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the proper officer to publish legal notice.
We have a motion by Counselor Black. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Counselor Sheeman. Any discussion on the matter? Seeing none, I'd ask for a roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Counselor Zeman.
Yes.
Counselor Herrick.
Yes.
Counselor Black.
Yes.
Counselor Sheeman.
Yes.
Counselor Shockey.
Yes.
5 ayes, no negatives, the motion passes. I thank the council. Mr. President, there was no new business filed in my office today, so it'd be in order for you to manage the balance of the agenda with comments and remarks from the council.
Okay, at this time, I'd recognize Councilor Zeman of Ward 1 for any remarks from the town council.
Ken, anything up planning board?
Currently, it appears as though we'll have a representative for a one-lot subdivision on Kennedy Avenue on the study session agenda on the 5th. That's it. Things will pick up.
Chief Timmer, fire, what's up?
We had a fire up on North Kennedy Avenue, across from the Public Works Garage, late last week. Had a great turnout, and it was a good stop for the fire department. Commissioner Micah conducted an investigation. We found it's an accidental fire, so that's all good. It's a Crown Point on Saturday for mutual aid on a fatal fire down there with the crew, so we've been busy. And then this morning we had a gas leak in the middle of O'Day Drive, and got interrupted while we were doing that with a lady that stuck her arm through her hospital bed, and she got it wedged in between the bars of the hospital. It was like a jail kind of bed, and so we had to go rescue her out of bed. So that was all about 4:30, 5 o'clock this morning, so pardon me for my droopy eyes and my quiet demeanor.
Okay, that, pretty much wraps mine up. I just see a lot of Girl Scouts here, so I'm hoping that some mint chocolate chip cookies are floating around somewhere.
Soon.
My favorites.
Very soon.
Okay, thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you, Councilor Zeman. Ward 2, Councilor Hare.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ken, we had our BZ, our first time ever attended a BZ meeting.
Interesting, wasn't it?
Very interesting, yes, very.
Yeah, we had 2 petitions on the agenda. We're short one member due to that member going to redevelopment, and then we were short one of our regular members. Both petitions went to vote. It was 2-1, so essentially there was no action. So both petitions have been continued to the February meeting.
Is there a study session or just that's the one meeting a month we have, is it?
No, BZA only has one meeting a month. They do have a study session prior to the meeting to discuss.
Which we had then.
Right,
okay,
exactly.
okay.
Yeah, but no, not like Plan Commission, where they have a study session and then a public meeting a couple weeks after that.
It was relatively interesting. Either Chief Hajnik or Assistant Chief Bass or anything you like to comment from the police department?
On behalf of myself and Chief Astor, thank the council and clerk treasurer and town attorney for an opportunity to continue to serve. Our 2019 crime stats were in. They were at some extremely lows in our criminal activity, some historic lows over the last 50 years. The men, women, sworn, civilian, and volunteer are what make this happen, and their commitment to the town of Highland. They're all heroes, and their accomplishments speak for themselves. We're grateful for the residents, the faith and civic-based organizations in town, the business districts for supporting our efforts, as well as the town council, clerk treasurer, police commission for financing and directing, encouraging our endeavors. Thank you very much. If anybody has any questions?
Are we gonna publish the stats?
Yes, they are. They should be in the gazebo in February. Issue of the gazebo also coming out, so.
And we thank you, Chief and Assistant Chief Bassett, for your unselfishness in the proposal with the contract. And I do thank Mr. Griffin and Mr. Reed as they tweaked it so we got it all adopted.
Very appreciative. Thank you.
And Pete, I noticed in the contract that includes you and Pat doing some bicycle time up and down the.
I need a lot of bicycle time.
Harry, anything from the police commission, since you're here?
We are very blessed by a great department. It's just a privilege to be able to serve. Thank you all.
And Chief, please, on behalf of the entire council, take back to the men how appreciative we are of the work they do, the dedication they do, the stats, the great stats, you just published, but, again, the dedication they do to put out and really serve our community, so please pass along all of our, thank you.
I certainly will.
Okay, thank you. John, Public Works. Anything?
I sent out a memorandum today, with regard to the, 2020, submittal or request for projects for community crossings matching grant. Those, you should have got those today. That application has to be submitted by February 7th. I'd like to get it out by the end of this week, in case there's any modifications.
On the board?
Pardon me? The only thing I think I need is a letter from the president committing the funds.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add to the agenda. The fact is that authorizing you to write that letter, because we won't meet again.
Today's the 27th, so by whatever it is, so I would add to the agenda the fact instructing the president to write a letter in support of the grant.
In your email, it did require the president to sign off, so.
Okay, I would grant that request. I don't think I even have to submit that to the board, right? Because I'm the agenda setter.
Well, except the agenda when it's set still requires, ordinarily I would go with that.
Okay.
If nobody objected, I'd live with it, but our rules say in the ordinance that we're amending the agenda, so we have to first amend it by 4 out of 5 of you agreeing to that, then on the issue itself to authorize you.
Fair enough.
So I'd like to move to amend the agenda.
I'll second it.
Motion by Counselor Herrick, second by Counselor Sheeman. Do we have any discussion on the matter? Seeing none, I would entertain a vote.
Thank you. Counselor Zeman?
Yes.
Counselor Herrick?
Yes.
Counselor Black?
Yes.
Counselor Sheeman?
Yes.
Counselor Shockey?
Yes.
5 yeses, 0 noes, therefore it passes, and now we can actually take up the matter of authorizing the president to prepare and sign a letter, actually to sign a letter prepared by you, I hope, Shel, to commit the funds for matching at the CCMG.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr.
I
Sheeman.
move that we authorize the council president to sign a letter to, matching funds, community crossing grants thing, that can get to Mr. Bach so he can finish the, application for the matching funds.
Motion by by Counselor Sheeman. Any second?
Second?
Second by Counselor Black. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask for a roll call.
Thank you, Mr. President. Counselor Zeman?
Yes.
Counselor Herrick?
Yes.
Counselor Black?
Yes.
Counselor Sheeman?
Yes.
Counselor Shockey?
Yes. Okay. Anything else in your good of the order?
That's it.
Counselor, thank you, Counselor Herrick, for adding that. I appreciate it. All right, I will
Not
skip.
done yet.
Oh, you're not done?
Not yet.
Oh, I thought you said you were done.
No, that was
sorry.
I would also ask to have on our agenda study session next week if possible. And then also maybe have Mr. Micah there, or maybe and also the water board presidents and the sanitary board president. A sense of the council resolution. We saw House Bill 1060 and also House Bill 1065, which are both, in my opinion, detrimental to our town. Again, I think we need to discuss it as a council, and then if in fact we're all in agreement, then we should then actually have to send a letter, send to the council resolution to the Lake County delegation to vote no on both of those, as well as maybe also from the sanitary board and the water board, again, to the Lake County to the Lake County delegation saying, hey guys, we just don't want this particular type of these House bills.
Okay. You would add that to the already existing study session?
That's right, just
You
make
would
sure,
add it to the agenda.
yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah, I just have you put it on there, because you.
Sure, yeah, and I would have no objection to that. So, and I don't, since it's not at this meeting, we do not have to take a vote or consider it. Okay,
Right, yeah.
but I will recognize that and add it to the agenda.
And one last item I'm gonna take away from whoever handles the park, but I know I'm not the fastest runner in the world, but I know the signs are going up, Alex.
I'll second that.
I see the signs are going up on the bike trail.
They started on the north side of Hammond, they're going all the way to Crown Point.
I got them as far as Wicker Park, one in Highland right there, so it's right there, so it looks really nice. That's it, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Herrick. Moving on to Ward 4, Councilor Black.
Ed, anything from Mikey?
Nothing tonight, but just thank you for the new contract.
Thanks, Ed.
Anything else, Councilor Black?
No, that's good.
Okay. Councilor Sheeman.
Yes, we have finally had our new commissioner sworn into the redevelopment commission last week. We had a long meeting. They've got a lot to learn. We're having another meeting coming up, another learning session. They have a lot of questions, which they should have, and they're doing a good job so far. And we'll be moving right along pretty fast, right, Kath? Any other comments, please?
We did have a long meeting, and I anticipate our study session next Monday to be a bit longer as well. We have one of our new commissioners, Sean Connolly, here this evening. I think it's gonna be a great group, and they do have a lot to learn, but we're gonna be very busy this year. And just so you're aware, I did express my concern for House Bill 1060. And Michael already passed that along because that actually affects the downtown design standards, which would include any new building that goes up on that downtown and overlay district, as well as our commercial property improvement grant program. So I can't even imagine why somebody would propose that. But,
Kathy, I think our record for a meeting for redevelopment is midnight, so if you could break that record, that'd be good.
we didn't, we were a couple hours short of that. We'll try.
All right.
That's it. Okay. All right. Well, now it's my turn. Ward 3. Girl Scouts, welcome. I'm glad that you're here. I understand my wife told me that there was some kind of requirement to come to a public meeting, so I'm glad you chose ours. Thank you for coming. I second the whole cookie situation, but
February 8th, they hit our doors, so
Oh, really?
be ready.
Okay.
We've taken pre-orders and the big truck comes the morning of the 8th.
Awesome, very good.
Mr. President, I know that we've been contacted by another troop leader in Highland. They will be doing the opening ceremony, with your permission, on March 9th.
Oh, nice.
And I'll remind them that what cookie flavors we like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's small.
Absolutely. Not that it's a quid pro quo.
That's correct.
Absolutely.
I would make that very clear.
That's right. But
Make
thank
that
you for
very
coming.
clear.
I appreciate that.
Thank you for having us.
Okay. Also,
Forget.
yes.
Usually what they do is, after the meeting, you get a picture with them, so they can take it back. Actually, seriously, I'm not busting your chops. Actually, take a picture. I'm sure what they do.
All right.
They come up and get a picture of something in the picture.
All right.
And a picture with the 30 boxes of.
That's right. That's right. Yes, absolutely. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. President, I'd like
Yes.
to add one thing that perhaps, I would like the town council to make a resolution supporting the 100-year anniversary of the right to vote for women.
Oh, okay.
Have a
Sure.
town resolution for that?
Why don't we add that to the agenda for the study session next week? But I would certainly be in support of that, definitely. Okay. Okay, and then to wrap up a couple things, Mr. Brown, in terms of parks, I got my tickets for the daddy-daughter dance coming up on a week from this Friday, I
Week
think.
from Friday, February 7th, yeah,
Yeah.
we usually get about over 400, 500 people for that event. It's a great event, and, yeah, you got daughter at age 3 to 13, buy your tickets.
Awesome. We're gonna have quite the dancing delegation from the Shockey household there. We'll be ready to go. So, all right, appreciate that. And then I was a little bit confused. So the ticket, I think, says 6 to 8, but then there was.
It is 7 to 9.
7 to 9. Maybe it says 7 to 9 on the ticket, but on the website it said 6 to 8.
Right, it's been corrected.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
It's
All right.
7 to 9.
I was confused. 7 to 9, I'll be there with bells on. All right, well, maybe not literal bells. Any other Parks Department issues?
Yeah, we've got a really cool event that's near and dear to my heart this Sunday. It's an indoor carnival that we have in the field house for kids with special needs. A bunch of park superintendents got together about 15 years ago and formed an organization called the Cooperative Special Recreation Initiative. It's easier for all of us to do that kind of programming together. So there's at least one or sometimes two events every month for kids with special needs. So it's Highland's turn to host one this January, and we always hold an indoor carnival for those kids. There's usually 100 to 200 people at that. That's this Sunday in the field house. So that's
What time is that?
I believe it's 1 to 3 this Sunday. Plenty of time to get home in time for the Super Bowl, so you'll be fine.
Mr. Chairman, I've worked that before with Alan. It's really, it's heartwarming, and you get out the chance to help out, please. It's really an event you really, it just warms your heart to do it.
Very cool, very cool.
And then just the final thing is our park director, Trevor Kinley, lost his father last week, passed away. So prayers and condolences with the Kinley family. There's a few Kinleys that work for us here in town, so the father was lost and the grandfather have 2 full-time employees in town, so.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I'd like to congratulate Councilor Bernie Zeman on his 5th grandchild. This night, 2 days ago.
Nice, yeah, congratulations, grandpa.
That means I'm getting old, that's all.
Excellent.
Yeah, so my daughter is very creative now. She's got a rose, a willow, and a river.
Nice.
So-
That's good.
You're sensing a theme.
Yeah, something's there.
Absolutely.
Sounds like she likes Doctor Who to me, but that's just me.
As long as you don't have one named Bernie, is all
Yeah,
right.
that's middle name.
That's the middle name.
Middle name of this one.
All right, and then I just finally, I would like to recognize all the new appointees that have actually come and shown some interest. I appreciate you guys coming and showing, your dedication, your interest, and I appreciate you guys being part of the town and making it the great place that it is. So, thank you very much. So with that, that concludes my remarks. Now we will accept comments from the public, and if anyone would like to speak, Mr. Volgren, your hand high.
9221 Parkway Drive. I'm not aware that this is a matter of great concern to everybody, but I'd like to offer my request that the council consider adopting public comments on action items at the beginning of meetings. Now, for those who have no idea what I'm talking about, comments that are occurring right now are occurring at the end of the meeting. Obviously, I'll state the obvious, that when you voted on items that you've had during the course of the meeting, we, the public, have a chance now to talk as an afterthought. It's like, you've already done what you're gonna do, and then we offer a comment, I like what you did, I don't like what you did. The purpose of doing it at the beginning of the meeting, before votes are occurring, is that members of the public then can offer those last minute chances to say, I'd like to encourage you to do this in favor of or against the proposals that are gonna be coming in the course of the meeting. This has been a part of the Highland School Board since July the 9th or the 10th of 2002. And the reason I know that happened, because I'm the one that made that happen. It's like, you may think this is a very minor matter, but those of you who are here, if you had been affected, the vote has already been taken, and it's an afterthought. By having the opportunity to talk at the beginning of the meeting, a person then can offer those additional thoughts to say, I think you ought to do this, or I think you shouldn't do that. And so, again, I'm not aware that anybody is standing in a line to say, I support that proposal, but I'm just tossing it out there.
I wholeheartedly concur.
I appreciate your thoughts.
Mr. Goldberg, would you rather have public comment before each works order, so they can comment on the individual one they were gonna vote on? Or you just wanna
Well,
comment on all of them?
you've got state law or your own practices, which are influencing things that are occurring, like you had a hearing on this matter or a hearing on that matter. I turned to Mr. Griffin. Is that a council practice, or is that a state law? When you had a hearing, we stopped individually for comments.
State law required it on those because additional appropriations require public comment before the council can act.
This pertains to actionable items. That item is going to be voted upon because it's called action. So I appreciate the thoughts. It's more like a general thing. Any item that occurs in the course of the meeting, there's going to be an agenda. So what you would do, you'd have people sign up in a book that would then indicate their interest in, and they would specify their name, their address, their phone number, and you would specify the item you're going to be wishing to talk about. So
That's a very good point. Where I have lived before, that's how it was handled, and we will probably work to that.
And it's called an action item, just, you know what I'm talking about. But I'm trying to just expand upon this so people in the audience can appreciate what we are talking about.
Very good point. Yes, sir.
And I appreciate, it seems to be some interest there. I'm very pleased at your reaction. And I thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goldberg.
Any other public comments? If you'd like to, you could raise your hand and stand up. Mr. Conrad, for the 3rd time this night, welcome.
Shockey, thank you very much. Kathy, what is House Bill 1060?
It's a bill that's under consideration that, if passed, will allow communities to do away with any requirements for design standards or material standards.
It takes away our authority to set them.
That's a
So we won't be
horrible
able to
idea.
stop
I am with
PVC
you.
from everything.
I agree.
That takes away from continuity
It's the
from,
PVC lobby that's doing
And
this,
then-
and the home builders lobby.
to Mr. Herrick's point, there's legislation afoot that we really need to jump on with the water department and the sanitary, where if we have a commercial business and they skip town on the landlord, they can stick the water department with the bill and not have to pay it.
That's
And then there's
11.65.
no recourse for the water department or the sanitary to go back after the landlords, which is also a horrible idea. We had, from the water department, I think that we had a customer here skipped out and stuck us with a few $1,000s, and we had no recourse. So it's important that you guys really consider this to, put an end to this nonsense. Otherwise, the water department gets stuck with it, and the sanitary gets stuck with their end of it. That could actually go into the thousands and tens of thousands of dollars if you start stacking them up. And that money comes back from the ratepayers. So you all need to get on that and stay on it. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Oh,
Mr. Condra.
one other thing. All right, you almost escaped. Chief Pete here and Pat were out having breakfast the other day. And some little tyke came up there and gave them a medal of St. Michael's, which is the patron saint of
police officers.
police officers. There you go, just out of the blue. Saw them sitting there, came up and gave them that medal. Which, those are kind of things I think that should go in the Gazebo Express, when we have incidences like that. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Condra. Any other members of the public? Yes, sir.
Michael Blaskey, 9333 Fifth Street. I was just wanted to verify for the the Council of Community Events, new applicants, Michael Blaskey.
Yes, welcome.
I was on the, okay.
Yes,
Just because the pronunciation of my name, and I had to turn in like 4 different applications because they kept getting lost, and then finally Liz Breslin personally delivered it to Michael Griffin, I believe. So I just wanted to verify. Thank you.
You have been so forth appointed.
Yep.
And then, Tom Maniac would love to ride the bike on the bike trail. Just to let you know,
All
he
right.
would love it.
I will pass that on.
Very good. Well, congratulations on your appointment. All right. Any other members of the public like to stand up? And Mr. Aran? Is it? Aran, sorry.
Elijah Aran. I just wanted to, I had a quick question. I'm going to be moving my business into downtown Highland in the coming months here. In terms of getting permits and all that, do I have to wait until the lease starts, or can I start any paperwork? Because my lease is going to start March 1st. So do I have to wait until the start of the lease, or can I start any preliminary process?
You can start. The means by which you would do that most likely would be to fill out the paperwork for a business license.
Okay.
I think that's
Through the clerk treasurer's office. I actually inspect for zoning compliance, but yeah, you can start.
And that would all be online?
Yes.
Yes, the
application.
the
The
form is.
applications are available online.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
can't- We don't register business licenses online yet.
Well, yeah, I
You can
just
pay for
download
it.
the application and then bring it in. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Congratulations, bringing your business home. Where do you move to?
Downtown Highland, right by Popa's, right, INDOT is in there right now. And so, their lease was supposed to end April, but they're going out early because they wanted. And so I'll be moving, over the month of March and hoping to be open around April or so.
Great, thank you. Welcome back home.
Yeah, thank you. Next Generation Gaming. Do like video games.
Mr. Chairman?
Thank you. Yes.
Kathy, did you do the inspection on the record place in Oakland yet?
No, Chief Timmer and I actually had an inspection set up, what was it, about 3 weeks ago now? And the owner canceled and hasn't rescheduled to date.
All right. Yes, ma'am.
Lydia Lopez, 90070B Drive. We were here under the impression that they were gonna talk about the military banners. Do you know when that discussion will be coming up?
So I know that we discussed the banner issue last session, and that's still something that we're
That's-
working on in terms
that's
of
fine.
policy. I know that I'm very much in favor of making sure that the military is honored through the banners, but also I'm very interested in making sure that the students also have their
Yes.
place and all that. We're trying to balance that, I believe,
Okay.
and we will
So it's still in discussion?
Yeah, it's still in
right?
discussion,
Yeah, okay.
nothing's been officially, nothing's been completely finalized yet, but, we are, it's something that I know that the citizens are concerned about, and so we're formulating a policy in order to get on top of it, to make sure one group doesn't feel slighted over the other and things of that nature, so I appreciate you.
But don't be confused by discussion, because we're all in favor of it.
Oh, okay, so it is gonna happen?
Yeah, so it's gonna happen, it's just gotta be, as Mr. Shockey is saying, get a work out all the kinks.
We don't want it to take place of the athletes, that's for sure, just to go up after they come down.
Sure, yeah, and I think that we can come to a resolution where everybody's happy, at least I hope so. And so we're gonna keep that in mind and work through it, definitely. And I appreciate what you're doing, because that's really good of you to honor the veterans like that.
By the way, aren't you the lady who did the box, the?
I did,
Yeah.
it's repaired,
Okay.
I have to paint it.
Okay.
So hopefully in the next 2 weeks it'll be back up.
They keep knocking on the door, they want their book.
In the next 2 weeks I'll have
Any
it
other
back up.
public comments? All right, seeing none, I would entertain a motion with regard to adjournment.
I've got to pay claims.
Oh, I'm sorry, pay claims, we gotta pay money. I almost skipped out.
You have a lot of mad employees.
I know, all right. I really don't. I'm just trying to be.
Okay, just let me know.
All right. Mr. Griffin?
Mr. President, the next business in order is your action to pay claims as described to you. You have accounts payable vouchers for vendors that would represent incurred costs or prepaid from January 14th, 2020 through January 27th, 2020, which is tonight, in the total amount of $893,064.85. And then you would need to ratify already allowed pay days with payrolls for December 6th in the amount of $222,320.78, December 20th in the amount of $309,101.35, and the 3rd of January 2020 in the amount of $217,124.86. That doesn't represent all payrolls, that represents payrolls under the aegis of the town council. There is a payroll for the park department, a payroll for redevelopment, and they have jurisdiction over those.
No.
Motion to pay claims.
Motion by Councilor Zeman, do you have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Black, any discussion? Seeing none, I would ask for a roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilor Zeman.
Yes.
Councilor Herrick.
Yes.
Councilor Black.
Yes.
Councilor Sheeman.
Yes.
Councilor Shockey.
Yes.
5 yeas, no negatives, it passes.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. I would now entertain any motions to adjourn. Unless you want
Motion to adjourn.
We could try and beat the midnight thing if you'd like.
No.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Zeman, or Councilor Zeman.
Second.
Second by Councilor Sheeman. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Adjourned.